Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend, Dennis Giannoutzis. He's prepared to ignite.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Dennis Giannoutzis.
Hey there, listeners. Well, welcome to 2025. I want to say thank you for tuning in to the Leadership is Changing podcast. But as we step into a brand new year, I want to take a moment to reflect on the incredible journey we've had in 2024. Over the past year, I've been privileged to feature some amazing guests on this podcast, leaders, change makers, and innovators who shared their wisdom, experiences, and insights. And together we've explored what it means to lead in today's ever-changing world. Over the next month, we're going to bring you some of these highlights. And in the Highlights 2024 episodes, we're bringing you some of the most impactful moments and key takeaways from 2024. Now, these highlights capture the essence of what this podcast is all about, helping leaders like you thrive in times of change and complexity. Now, whether it's tips on being courageous, thinking outside the box, adapting, or navigating transitions to higher levels of leadership, these snippets are sure to inspire and energize you for the year ahead. And of course, these highlights are just the tip of the iceberg. If something resonates with you, I encourage you to go and check out the full interviews from 2024 to dive deeper into the incredible conversations we've had. So let's get into it. Here are the highlights from 2024 on the Leadership is Changing podcast.
I started boxing at like a late age. I started around 18, 19 and kind of dove into that, really set discipline goals up in my life to keep me on the straight and narrow, so to say. And it really brought everything into like super focus in my life, and it let me thrive in other assets of my life. And I put things together and put myself through college, started businesses. I had a bar at, I think I was like 28. So from when I was about 18 to about 35, I pretty much lived boxing and then got by whatever I could do to get by. And then life kind of outgrew the boxing, and I used that background to propel myself business-wise, and ended up being politically also. So that was kind of interesting the way I got into that,
Yeah. So what was the transition like for you to go from the sporting side into the politics?
It was kind of like on a bet in a way.
Oh.
It was the person that was my predecessor as a state. I started off as a state representative. I was a state rep for 9 years before there was a special election to become the senator in this district. But I had a bar license that I needed to get renewed. And when you're dealing with the state in Pennsylvania, dealing through the red tape, it gets hard to renew it. That you put your license up on the wall at a certain date, it expires. Well, mine had expired. So I got a hold of my state representative to try and get it fast tracked to get it done, to get renewed. And my representative at the time wouldn't call me back. So I kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. And I remember having a party for him where I ate the money when he ran for election the years prior, like 3-4 years prior. So I had a bad taste in my mouth for the person. And, I started talking to my family members. I could beat that guy, My dad's like, I don't know about that. And he started asking around, and I kind of was a well-known person in the community because of sports and stuff, and being like a local club fighter, you know what I mean? You get a sense of popularity in the bars and such, and that springboarded me into the scene. I actually beat the guy by 241 votes my first time around back in 2013. So it was a pretty quick ride to the top. Usually people serve in city councils and school boards and before they get into that kind of position. But I got really lucky and had a lot of great people around me to help me up.
The importance of having people around you to support you and help you, how important is that?
Yeah. One thing I will say is it's the trick is not having good people around you. It's listening to the good people around. You could have some of the best people in the world around you, but if you don't listen to them, you know, that's where the problem happens. You know what I mean? And it's like a lot of things have to line up, but at the same time, you have to surround yourself with the right people. Your employees, most importantly, have to be smarter than you, have to be better than you, and you have to jive with everybody. You know, that's some kind of synergy is always huge in the political spectrum and in the official side of our job, because it's two worlds in PA politics that you have to keep separate. You know, you can't mix them, because you can mix them, but you can't use government resources for political reasons.
Yep.
You know, and that's where it gets tricky, and you have to watch.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got the same here as well in New Zealand. So how long's your term when you get elected? How long's that term?
My state house seats, the terms were 2 years. The Senate seat is 4 years.
Right.
In the Pennsylvania State Senate.
So how many years or how many times are you been in the...
So here's what happened. I got elected to my 5th term in the House. Okay. And then I think it was like within a year, that Senate seat opened up. So I won the Senate seat in a special election. And then I ran, and another year after that, I had to run in a regular term. And I just won my first full term of 4 years. So I had like 3 elections in 18 months.
Wow.
And it was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's great. And so with the role that you have today as a senator and you doing the boxing and the business as well, how did you actually get into leadership yourself?
I think that's kind of a hard question. Leadership itself, I think since kindergarten, I've been in, a leadership position out in the yard. You know what I mean? I tell everybody it's a schoolyard. That's all politics is. It's a popularity contest in a schoolyard. But then you have to know what you're talking about. You have to be educated. You have to know when to shut up. Like I tell people all the time, you could be the smartest person in the world in the PA legislature, and that doesn't mean anything. It's the relationships you make. It's how you help people. And most importantly, it's your word. Your word is your currency, which is huge. So, there are people that break their word, but whenever that happens, their stock within the building just plummets, and, there's no level of trust or belief in them. So,
yeah,
that's one thing most importantly, I pride myself on is my word. So it might be hard to get, but if you get it, it's gold.
Yeah, sure. And, you got to be also mindful of, you're not just out there saying everything every 5 minutes as well. So I like what you said, your word is your currency. And I think for a lot of leaders as well today, and in particular here, listeners, is the fact that if leaders are going to say they're going to do something, then do it. Here's an example. When questions are asked at some presentation you might be doing, and some people don't know the answer to the question, the person up front goes, okay, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll come back to you. And they don't go back to people. And it's just dumb. And so their word of them actually saying or committing to saying, I'm going to go back to people, and they don't follow up, is where they lose that trust and credibility with people.
Yeah, and also not calling people back. That's a huge thing I pride myself on. No matter who it is, I call everybody back. And if someone tells me they call my office and no one called them back, I tell them they're crazy, because that's not true. It doesn't happen. We call everybody back. I call everybody back. And I move from there, but, sometimes things happen. I apologize if something got mixed up, but, I'm very hands-on. And that I think has really helped propel me in terms of public services. My constituent service, I serve 250,000 people now. The PA State House, it was 66,000. I went from 66 to 250. And I pride myself on helping my constituents basically surf and be a conduit for my constituents within the Pennsylvania government. Like, since you're from New Zealand, I'll put it in perspective. Like Pennsylvania, we have like almost 13 million people in Pennsylvania. And we have like the 20th largest economy in the world. That's including countries. So, our budget is like $42 billion. And that's without the federal component of what comes into our state. That's just the state component. So probably like close to $80 billion with federal funds a year. So, it's a pretty large undertaking.
I'm actually in Atlanta, Georgia. Yes.
The United States of America.
The United
excellent.
States. Yes.
Have they got any good American football teams there?
We do have, Atlanta has a great soccer team. We just had a soccer game in Atlanta about 2 or 3 weeks ago, 47,000 people descended on the city of Atlanta. Traffic was shut down for probably 3 to 4 hours. It was amazing.
Just for a soccer game. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. It's good, isn't it? It's really good. Yeah. Hey, imagine if you and I on stage speaking, we had 47,000 people in the crowd. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh, let's manifest it, Dennis. I think it's happening. We just said it. It's working out.
Awesome. That'd be really good. Hey, look, I've just given the audience a little bit of an introduction to you, but we would love you to share more about your background, and also understand that you're an author of a book as well. So let's start with the background, what you've done, what you're doing today, and then let's talk about the book as well.
My name is Tashion Macon, and I'm originally from a city called East St. Louis, Illinois. It's a city that had some socioeconomic challenges. However, that's not the most powerful narrative of the city. It is the birthplace of Miles Davis, Katherine Dunham, Tina Turner. I grew up, my grandmother owned a juke joint, or you may call it a speakeasy, on the Chitlin Circuit. So I grew up around this kind of creative power all the time, playing in her speakeasy. It's where Jackie Joyner Kersee, we are the home of Olympians, ambassadors, creative icons, and we call ourselves, and it's right to call ourselves, the City of Champions. So it's not about our socioeconomic conditions, but how we take those conditions and become champions from those conditions. It is that framework that sent me out into the world, and it is what inspired me to write the book, Coming In Hot, a blueprint for Black women setting the world ablaze.
What a title. That's awesome. Yeah, fantastic title. Oh, wow. I love it. And the other thing, too, I really like what you just said there was about the City of Champions. What a mindset. What a way to think about things and do things. I think it's pretty special. Like Chicago's got the W, right? They talk
Yes.
about the W for the win, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, the City of Champions. And I also understand from your background as well, you've had the opportunity to work with some pretty big names, right?
Oh,
Pretty
yes.
big names out there.
Yes, I think it was so apropos that I would grow up in the city. My grandmother would have the speakeasy with all these critically iconic creatives, and my career would lead me to work in the entertainment industry. Started my career at LaFace Records with the icons of L.A. Reid and Kenneth Babyface Edmonds, and was a part of the team that launched careers of Toni Braxton, Usher, Outkast, Tony Rich, Donnell Jones, Pink, you name it. And it was just a hit factory, to be honest, a Grammy Award winning hit factory, and had the opportunity to get selected to go lead the marketing and branding for Dr. Dre when he left Death Row. That was just a phenomenal experience. One of the best people I've ever worked with in my life, a creative genius. And he really allowed me and the team that worked there, Kiddis and Vivian, to really be as imaginative and as ingenuous as we wanted to be. So we did a lot of strategic partnerships. We came up with a lot of big, bold ideas that he would support. So I went from there to work in film, television. I did a lot of strategic partnerships with all of the national sports, Olympics, NBA, NFL, FIFA. Just had a glorious experience around that work.
Wow, powerful. See, listeners, I told you I had a great guest here with me. So it's really good. So, you know what? I've been told that I've got a great face for radio. Is that right?
You have a great face for TV, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
It's good to hear.
Yes.
Good to hear. Excellent. Well done. Hey, look, we're going to be talking about leadership, and it's just great to hear about your background. But before we get into that, tell us more about the book. A fantastic title. But what does it do for people? How does it help people? What can they get from the book?
For me, the book was a love letter to the executive experience of a Black woman in corporate America. It was a love letter to her. It's also for what I call the entry, emerging, expanding, and established leader. There's something for the actual arc of your career in the book from a leadership perspective. I also think the book speaks to the fact that leadership is a talent, not a title. It's a talent that can be cultivated. It's not simply a title, and that you can be a leader from the cubicle to the C-suite. So the book talks about that. It also talks about how to count up the cost and the coins to cultivate a life or a career that is unique to you. I often talk to people about the title is something you rent, your talent is something you own. So understand the distinction. Don't get so caught up on your title that you forget the talent that got you the title. So even if the title goes away, the talent can move on.
And I think that's where a lot of people actually, I think at times here is that they get wound up or they feel that their whole identity is around that title. And it's not, it's that talent, as you just said beautifully there, that's what the talent is. That's the thing that they get to take everywhere they go. And that's what they bring to the table. I think that's the value, right?
Oh, it's absolutely a value. And I think he said it perfectly. The talent is what brings you to the table. It gives you the seat at the table. It allows you to have something unique and authentic to say while you're at that table. I also think the talent is something you can continue to expand and elevate as a person yourself, that you coach and you lead and you train high performance executives. The talent is something you can continue to optimize and amplify from a champion mindset, right? Michael Jordan continued to go to practice. Kobe went to practice. They were all champions, right? But they continued to practice their craft. And I think that's where the talent lives. Continuing to make a commitment to understand that my talent is unique to me. The title is something I rent. The talent is what I own.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Dennis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.